Hello, everybody. It's me again, AngelRun89.
And Coolman229.
So,
we're gonna talk about Xiaolin Chronicles again because we're idiots and we keep watching the show.
I thought it was done. I really thought it was done. I stuck through 10 episodes of it at one point, but then I said screw it. But then
we watched the first 17 episods, and there was that little hiatus or something. And we were like, okay, we're gonna be done. We're gonna watch this. We're gonna critique the hell out of it, and then it'll be out of our system.
And then I see on Tumblr the list of 3 new episodes, and literally the title of the second of the new 3 is the reason I watched it, because I was just like, no. What are they doing? What are they doing? Oh my gosh. And yeah, it's just terrible. Very terrible.
Alright, so for this video, we're only going to be talking about 3 episodes, since the last video we did, it was all of the 17 episodes of Chronicles. So this will be only going over, what is it? I think it's called Super Cow Patty, Chase Lays an Egg.
What was that third one called? Oh, it's like
Drawn to be Evil.
There you go.
Okay, we're going to go this episode by episode and talk about stuff we hate.
And there's a lot.
Alright, so Super Cow Patty. So basically, this episode has...
Okay, so here's one of my major complaints for Xiaolin Chronicles. This is a really major complaint. And if you know me, I'm not some super Tumblr social justice warrior, rawr, feminism, men are pigs, blah, 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 blah. No, that ain't me. No.
That ain't me neither.
I believe in pure equality of men and women are equal, and I'm not anything stupid like...
Yes.
High five. Okay, so I'm not saying this because of rawr social justice, rawr, I am some teenager. Okay, so Xiaolin Showdown, yes, one of its weaknesses was that it didn't have a lot of female characters, but with what few it had, they were still likable.
They were still good characters.
Like, okay, so yes, we don't know much about Catnap and Showdown other than that she's like this cat thief. And
she also knows Jack outside of...
Like, which, okay, but she was still a really sarcastic character who had, like some funny lines every now and then. Like, some really funny lines.
She's just a fun character that popped every once in a while. She was literally like Catwoman. She was the one who would pop in, do some stuff, and leave. She
was just kind of this funny, like, little sarcastic side character, which was like, okay, yeah, I mean, she wasn't my favorite, but I did like her, and I did like her character design. I thought it was very akin to, like Catwoman. It just kind of looked like a Xiaolin Showdown version of Catwoman.
Literally.
But it was just, I liked her. Like, I mean, I don't love her. Like, there's not too much to her, but I liked her.
But
and in Chronicles, she is nothing. She's been demoted to extra. And Wuya was obviously a big, important thing. Like, a major villain. The first villain. Like, major, big bad.
And especially in Season 3 when she had a larger human presence.
Yeah, it was like, and even with her diminished powers, she was still threatening. And so, it's like, but again, once again in Chronicles, you don't get to see much of her, even though she's now voiced by Cree Summers. Oh my gosh, you have Cree Summers! Okay.
Good voice actors doing bad roles. What the hell?
Okay, and Kimiko, obviously, main female character. Kimiko's awesome. She got so much development. She maybe gets occasionally a couple of good moments, but it's just so phoned in.
I'm a girl!
And oh my gosh, how many times do we have to keep shoving in your face that she's a girl? Like,
we had a really? For that.
Really? And okay, here's a couple of really likable side characters besides Catnap that now they're diminished to nothing in Chronicles. We have Megan, Jack's cousin, which she was funny. I loved her. She was hilarious. Like,
especially when he stuck her in the indestructible hamster ball, and
or how she's like having tea with his robot. Like, she was hilarious. I loved her, and I just loved. She wasn't evil. She was just a spoiled brat. And like, even whenever the main characters come in, she was like ticked off at Jack. So she decided just to help the heroes, just to get back at him. Like, and it was just, she was a pure little spoiled girl. Like that's such a little kid thing to do. Just like, oh, you won't play dollies with me? Well,
I'll help your mortal enemies.
She was funny. I loved her. Like, I wish we had another episode of her because she was hilarious. And another is Jessie. Oh my gosh, I love Jessie. Like, not only is it like One thing I know some real social justice warriors would only obsess over about Jessie is the fact that she's obviously an overweight character. What I loved about Jessie is there was no mention of that whatsoever. Nobody cared about that. Nobody focused on it because that's how it should be.
Honestly, the only mention of her being a girl was the fact that she had an all-girl.
Well, yeah, and I think Raymundo was just like, she looks like you, but with like makeup on, but she wasn't even wearing makeup. But it was just like, but I liked how very like she was like this rebellious teenager, but she had so much personality for a character you only see once.
So basically, here's her relationship with Clay. She's sort of the black sheep of the family. At least she felt that way.
She felt that way, and that's why she kind of rebelled. Because
she felt like she had this massive inferiority complex. Because Clay was the big older brother. He did all the good stuff. All the parents loved him. And everyone
she felt
loved him.
like she was living in a shadow, like the typical syndrome you have between an older sibling and then the second like sibling that comes along in the family. Like you hear a lot in these psychology classes and these child development classes, like usually there's going to be a very specific dynamic that these two will have, and usually that will be one of rivalry between the first two children, like if you have more than those. And if it's just those two children, they would still have that because it's basically the oldest and the baby.
So basically
so of course she didn't know that. Like, she probably only saw any form of praise that Clay ever got.
And the episode was that she first appeared in was mostly showing the fact that, hey, you know what? No, this isn't, like, perfect and everything. And, and you weren't basically hated and everything.
Oh, no. And what I loved is how they still kept true to the sibling rivalry, but still had the heart of, like Clay was still willing to forgive her because it's like, well, she's my baby sister. She makes mistakes. And she corrected herself in the end. And... Like, they came to terms, but they were still, like, because they don't get along, because it's obvious they don't get along. Also, not just because of, like, any family issues, but it's because they have really drastically different personalities. Which, that makes sense.
She's a lot more brash and a lot more, like, aggressive than Clay is.
I understood that because of, like, okay, yeah, I have two siblings who are older than me, and their dynamic is definitely very similar to Clay and Jessie, except for one thing is they actually got along. But sometimes my brother would troll her and like tease her like because she's so competitive by nature, which is like I kind of see my older brother as like a brainiac version of Raymundo because of like that's something Raymundo would do, like just constantly like if he knows somebody's very competitive, he would tease them just to like and troll them and get at it. But anyways,
that's what
the relationship I had is with my little sister is very much like Clay and Jessie. I'm more like Clay. And, I mean, I'm not exactly like Clay, but in terms of closest to in this dynamic, I would be more like Clay and my little sister would be more like Jessie. Granted, she's not some delinquent, but it's kind of very much akin to that. You have the one sibling who has the more easygoing personality, and then you have the one who's the more independent. Like, it's hard to explain, but it's just like, it's very much akin to that. But it's like, we can fight, but at the end of the day, we'll still forgive each other because we're family. Doesn't mean we'll get along as easily, but it's like, we still love each other. And that's just what it felt like. It felt like actual siblings. And so, in Chronicles, we've diminished female characters so greatly. People are like, oh, but you have two new female characters. Okay, well, you got rid of Jessie in favor of a brother. And we're having a sister character for Kimiko. And let's see, what's so interesting about this character? Nothing. She's just a Mary Sue.
All right. Look, we need to explain the episode.
And then Shadow, which, weird. I'm sure we really need that creepy girl.
All right, so with the Cow Patty episode, basically what's going on in the episode is that they're trying, Jack and the dragons are going to get all the Shengang Wu. But this guy who's this...
a superhero, like what the...
Yeah, he's a cow-themed superhero with these horns that can shoot milk for some reason.
And Omi's line is just like, ew, milk is for babies. And I'm like, Omi wouldn't say that.
He only thing he wouldn't like is if it wasn't goat milk. Because didn't he make a comment about that, of the difference between cow milk and goat milk?
Well, he also remember how he, like, excitedly really wanted to milk a cow? Like, he just, like, that whole episode, there was that whole, like, side gag of Omi trying to milk a cow.
And him getting kicked in the face by...
Like, that was funny, but it was just, like, Omi's just not like, ew, milk is disgusting, it's for babies. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, so this cow-themed superhero who is Super Patty, or Super Cow Patty, he's jumping in and he has this magical flying cow. But he's beating them to the Shengang Wu, and he's supposed to be some agent for good, and he's beating up Jack, and he's also fighting the
And suddenly
dragons.
Jack decides, oh, this is my hero, but no.
I'm suddenly he demotes himself to sidekick
But it's just like I said, this series just never explains itself, and it's never consistent, and it just flips on a switch every time it wants to make a decision, because it's like, ooh, you're my hero. Nope, ooh, now this guy's my hero. And for some of you people out there on Tumblr who are saying maybe it's not really Lemime, it just looks like it. I think 4 times in the episode, or maybe it was 5, they specifically called him Lemime.
Honestly, I don't ever remember him getting called anything in Showdown other than the mime.
Which, oh my gosh. And, okay, so also, speaking of which.
He gets beaten at the end.
Well, yeah, speaking of which, we complained in our other video how this show constantly kept introducing things or Shengang Wu and other, like, plot elements just randomly right off the bat in the first episode without getting even any explanation, because it's like, just because an old audience maybe might know some things doesn't mean a new audience will. And how is a kid who never watched Xiaolin Showdown gonna know who the heck Lemime is? Like, why are you randomly introducing him right off the bat at the beginning of this episode, where all of a sudden, like, Kimiko's just like, it's Lemime or something, and it's like, what?
Okay, and first off, one thing about his powers is he's practically omnipotent in this. And I don't really understand what the hell it is, because in the original, in Showdown, it was the mime powers.
It made so much sense.
He could create walls, he could, do lassos, and it was basic, like, mime stuff.
But it based around the character's imagination. Like, even Patty made a line like, oh, this is mime stuff. Like, so it's not real. But it's not like suddenly those things vanished and he beat all those little tiny mimes up. No, they were still holding these, like, weird, like, glowing bat things, and he still beat them up. It's like, in Showdown, it was like,
everything was
if I imagined a door, it would appear.
Yeah, and everything was invisible in Showdown. That was actually very specific, that no one could see it. Not even the audience could see it. But in Chronicles, everything is outlined. So he's, like, creating bombs.
Apparently the audience is too stupid to know this. I feel like Chronicles thinks its audience is dumb.
And it's like creating these boxes, and it's like all these extremely intricate stuff, and it's like, this isn't mime stuff. This is just, we're creating things out of nowhere. This is like freaking Okami. It's, I'm going to draw a circle. Nope, now I have a bomb. And it's like, this isn't stuff that the mime did.
Like, if you're going to introduce these characters, you have to explain.
Well, I mean, in the mime's powers were never explained in Showdown. It was just, he has mime powers.
Well, he was a mime, that was that was a joke. Like, he wasn't actually a big serious thing. Like,
because he never popped up all too often outside of his episode. He popped out in the future.
Well, but then you see, like, that whole thing with him and Clay, and they punch each other, which then
he's miming him.
He's like, he was just a mime. That was the whole gag, and the gag was like, oh, it's your imagination that makes things real. Like, okay, it's like, we're Chronicles. It just throws things at you, and it's just like, yep.
Oh yeah, and he also has this gigantic castle full of, like, mime minions.
And again, it doesn't explain or introduce as a villain. Like, at least whenever reoccurring or even side reoccurring villains came in, they introduced them. All of them. Like, even, like all those people that were in Jack's Army of Evil, like Tubby Mora, Cat Nape, Cyclops, they were all introduced.
Well, they all introduced in previous episodes, and then it was more of a...
And Vlad, like, they were all introduced. They had episodes that introduced these characters. Panda Bubba, they had a character that introduced it to you. So then you could
several episodes.
So you could kind of would understand them. Like, even like with the very first episode, it still took its time. Like, it's set up so you could understand to know who Wuya is. So when she comes up, you realize, uh-oh. And whenever you see Jack, it specifically introduces him. And when you see him, he talks very much kind of like a bratty teenager who wants to take over the world. So it's like, it set things up. Set it up. Just set it up. Please explain. Please.
Yeah. So, I mean...
Oh, and... seriously, why do you hate Clay so much, Xiaolin Chronicles? Why do you hate him so much? Please explain this to me. What did Clay ever do to you? Did one of you just accidentally get run over?
Did Clay kill your parents?
Did somebody in Texas, like accidentally run over your kitten or something? Like, what is the deal? Why do you keep making him stupid? Why do you never let him win showdowns? Why? Oh, why? do you keep making these really dumb, inconsistent cowboy jokes that have nothing to do with being a cowboy?
Like moose and what?
Or are these jokes that have nothing to do with Texas? Like, what does sumo wrestling in a wrestling ring covered in beans have to do with Texas? I'm sorry. As a Texan, I'm going to say that's not how we do things the Texas way.
No, we don't.
I'm just, I've lived in Texas kind of my whole life, and okay, people are like, yeah, it's a show, it's supposed to be funny, but, okay, I hate SpongeBob. He knows this. I hate SpongeBob.
I loved SpongeBob when I was
But there was only 2 episodes that I actually found really funny, and one of them was the episode with the whole Texas thing, and they had a whole bunch...
the episode where Sandy was missing Texas.
And they had a whole bunch of Texas jokes. But those, even though those were kind of hilarious, especially like whenever she finds they're trying to throw her like a little party, and everything had nothing to do with Texas, but it made sense because these were people from the sea who know nothing of Texas, so they were just taking words that they heard and trying to think it. Like when they had a barbecue, like they have the letter Q in a barbed wire, which, okay, that was funny because that has... Like, that's just them not understanding. Like, and they took other things that were stereotypes, and they poked fun at it, though. And, and Xiaolin Showdown did that a lot with Clay, too. They poked fun at it. Like,
but they took the stereo... Like, we talked about this in the last video, is that they took the cowboy stereotype, and they turned it into a... You know what? He's a stereotypical cowboy, but he's not just that.
But Showdown did that with all these characters. They took a stereotype, and... they kind of subverted it a lot, or they were affectionately sometimes poked fun at it. Just like Raimundo, he was obviously supposed to be the jerk with the heart of gold. And I was like, but then he was beyond that. But he was the Brazilian kid who loves soccer. But it's like that wasn't all about him, though. Like, there was more to his character. Clay was the cowboy, but he was kind. He was really, smarter than he looked. And he was patient, And Kimiko, she's the
techie Japanese girl.
Yeah, she's the tech-savvy Japanese girl, but she's also a hothead, and she's, like, compassionate and, like, a big sister to everybody, despite being this only child. And even though she's an only child, and you think she's, like, just this spoiled little brat.
She has a fantastic relationship with her father.
But she's not a spoiled little brat. She kind of reminded me of Lottie from Prince and the Frog, although, obviously, she's a lot smarter than Lottie. It's like, but they're just, like, they're the sweet spoiled characters who, like, are, like, yes, they're spoiled, but... they're not rotten. They're very happy, and they're very loving. And Omi was the Chinese kid who doesn't understand modern slang because if he was raised in a temple away from like modern civilization. But while that was stuff with running gags, he was still also very curious.
And he learned a lot over the course of the series.
And he always had like this want to learn from other people. Like besides besides, poking fun at his ego, that was nothing. That has nothing to do with being a Chinese kid. Like,
that was just his character.
And sometimes his naivety wasn't from the fact just because he was raised in some temple away from modern civilization. It was because he was also a little kid. And they would poke fun at that, too. But they took stereotypes, but then they would either affectionately poke fun at it and not be offensive, or... they would subvert it and take it to something different.
Oh, a triple sow cow. What, a cowboy can't have a hobby?
Okay. In Showdown, even when you had character-focused episodes, the characters in the background didn't feel like pointless plot devices. They basically were nothing but these talking props in Chronicles. Because in Showdown, okay.
Well, it's like, let's take a Clay-related episode. The one where we see his dad. And we see they go back to the ranch where he lived at.
It's but you still had moments, some good moments.
You had a developed episode with his father, and it was you saw the relationship between him and his father.
But the background characters didn't feel like just these background talking props. Well, they had that running gag with Omi, that was funny. But then you had all these characters, they were talking and interacting, and they were all part of the action, and they felt a part of it. Even though they weren't the focus, they still felt a part of it. They weren't just a prop. They felt like characters, like actual people. Or the episode that was one of my favorites is The Evil Within, where that was definitely a Kimiko focused episode. It was supposed to be Kimiko learning to that it's okay to admit to make a mistake, and like it's okay to make mistakes.
And that's actually what she said was when she released it, and she basically said, I made a mistake, but that doesn't mean I can't fix it.
But you still had these like lines from Dojo and lines from Fung and lines from like other characters and like Jack and all that, but they didn't feel like props. And then of course there's that whole subplot that started with Chase and Omi, which like that came to be a big, huge thing like later in the series, and it was in a Kimiko focused episode that they really started to finally introduce this element. So it was just like
everything was connected, essentially.
It had purpose, and these characters felt like characters. They didn't feel like these walking, talking, living props, which is basically what Mako is. But I say enough about Legend of Korra. I'm not going to get into that right now.
Probably get back to the episode itself.
Yeah, I'm just...
So yes, back when we were talking about the episode of Super Cow Patty. So basically, they fight this cow guy, and he keeps beating them. He keeps knowing where they are for some weird reason, and he's beating them. And
because he put a tracking device on Clay.
Well, yes.
Which they made a throwaway line that I was basically the geek of the family, and Clay's just like, you were always good with that computer stuff, and I'm like,
Clay was.
Excuse me, if you're going to just throw away this line about a character, that doesn't work. That's showing and not telling. I mean, that's telling and not showing. And sorry, I had it backwards. I'm so angry. It's killing my brain cells.
It's all right.
It's killing my brain cells. The show is making me stupid. It's just like, okay, with Kimiko and Showdown, we constantly see her playing on something. Whether it's like a PDA, or she had a cell phone, or a computer, or like a video game. Like, she always had like technology, and she could even like do stuff occasionally with technology.
And there's a part, especially when what did she get? It was the episode where she was hacking the world or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember. She hooked her like the eagle, the one that lets you go into people's minds or something.
Yeah. No. It was the
Shadow of Fear.
Wasn't it like okay? Yeah, but she like hooked her PDA up to a Shengon Wu. She used her smarts to like do something, which. While there were some things about that episode that weren't that greatly written, and I was like, but it's still, that shows you something about Kimiko. But it's like, I could believe she could do that because Kimiko proven she's very tech savvy. She likes to like tinker around sometimes with like these little technology things. It wasn't like something like you could just say it and I'm like, what? No. Like.
Yeah. So, well, one of the things that really annoyed me was that if this cow patty was supposed to be some sort of thing for justice, and then he was fighting the good guys for Shengon Wu, and there's this one.
Apparently, he just wants to one up Clay. That's the whole thing.
All right. There's the showdown. The main showdown of that episode was between Cow Patty, who has this big, deep voice, and he goes.
He's obviously, I'm trying to be bigger and better than Clay.
Well, and then he gets into a thing with Clay, and
oh my gosh!
All right.
Okay, once again, the CGI showdowns, they are terrible.
And there's poorly choreographed, and
the characters have no weight. It's so sloppy.
Well, they're running like they're running like right up walls, and it's like.
They just have no weight. It just is the most lifeless thing I've ever seen. It looks. Sometimes, like, I recently replayed, I was starting to, our old Majora's Mask game. That is on an N64, I might remind you, and nowadays that's basically a fossil. And they're all basically blocks. And even some of their movement felt a little more natural than this.
Well, I have always said that Majora's Mask did have a significant upgrade in terms of animation over Ocarina of Time.
Well, even Ocarina of Time, I was watching somebody's Let's Play recently just because I'm, my fanfic. And they instead, it wasn't the 3DS, they were playing the original, which I'm still looking at this and I'm like, this was made in the 90s. It's just and it's obviously very dated 3D video game animation.
But something made in 2014.
This is the most, it is so ugly, it just has no weight, and whenever the characters, they punch each other, you don't feel any impact.
Or then they go flying 5 million feet, and you're just like...
It's like...
There's nothing interesting about it.
And it's boring. These showdowns are boring. I literally because I was fixing my hair, rewatching these 3 episodes again this morning, and during the showdown, I started to get bored, and instead I'm just because what I was doing was kind of looking, straightening my hair while watching this. Instead, I'm just whatever. So it's then it became background noise as I'm fixing my hair, because they are boring. They are so boring. The showdowns were interesting. They were my favorite parts to watch in the episode, just because they always did something new and creative.
The entire show was called Xiaolin Showdown.
It's built around it. It's just like it leads up to it, and
in Chronicles, it's so. But in
Chronicles, it's an afterthought.
And it's also a race to the top.
Well, oh my gosh! Once again, every single one are a race to the top.
Well, in this episode, I think they actually did state something, but then they were for some reason on a snowy mountain in a race to the top, and it's like this wasn't even what they said. And then, of course, Cow Patty wins, and then of course
because Clay's never allowed to win. Oh, and that's the other thing. In our last video, whenever I said Clay loses a showdown to Jack. And Jack, of course, gets his Fist of the Iron Bear. And then suddenly in another episode later, Clay has it again. Well, in Cow Patty, we see Jack has it. He puts it on, he's just like, oh my gosh, this thing is heavy. And then Ping Pong takes it from him to give it back to Clay.
Yeah, classy Ping Pong. He literally, and it was like...
Oh my gosh, and Ping Pong is once, like I was saying, how they can't even be consistent with their characters. Ping Pong, they've established to be their perfect little humble Gary Stu. I've seen... a couple of times Ping Pong not act like his sweet, kind, forgiving self. Like, he's acting no better than the background characters who are being, jerks.
Yeah, he stole Shengang Wu from Jack. And, I understand...
Which I can see that, because it's because when he attacked Jack, he said, that is Clay's, and he, grabs it from him, which I'm like, okay, Ping Pong's a little kid, and a little kid would just be like, hey, that doesn't belong to you, even though, But it was previously, even though Jack won it, then randomly Clay has it again, but now Jack has it again. When did that happen? Oh my gosh. Xiaolin Chronicles takes the word consistency and it constantly beats it with a stick on a daily basis.
And that's the gospel truth. But so they basically...
But I'll get into my Ping Pong complaint later when I see even more of it, because, I get into more of it, because...
So
back to our complaint about Jesse.
Yeah.
Because now who's Patty?
Okay, yeah. So basically, Patty ends up going back with him to the temple. I don't really remember.
Because he was just like, oh my gosh, it's you. Which
okay.
How our complaint about Ping Pong? How lazy character design.
He's literally a mini Omi.
And it's okay, at least Tomoko doesn't look like an exact clone of Kimiko. You could argue that she does kind of look like one of Kimiko's styles, in Showdown, and they just took it and aged it up. But it was okay, but at least
that or some.
It's she's a total Mary Sue, but some thought was put into that design. I still can't stand that Mary Sue, but
Patty
whatever.
Is literally a palette swap of Clay.
And there's no thought put into it.
He literally has the same face, the same body shape, the same hair. It's just auburn or brown or something.
It's reddish
or something.
Reddish brown, whatever.
And it's
And yeah, Jessie looked like Clay too, but just fatter and a girl. But they still tweaked it. It's just
her hair was a lot messier, and she had that.
And she had pigtail and a smaller hat, and like I said, she's obviously more heavier set, and they made her still look a little bit more feminine. Which I'm like, okay, that's taking a similar design and tweaking it,
and basically making a character that would reasonably be a sibling.
Which but this is taking this exact same character design and just switching out the colors. That is beyond lazy. Which is, that's, not as lazy as Ping Pong, which is just shrinking Omi and then just adding glasses to it, but...
Sakura Blue, the laziness. But, Patty, it's
And he's not as interesting as Jesse was.
We find out while he's at the temple that he's like, well, you are always better than me, and it's and then I was literally watching it, I was going, no, this is Jesse's thing,
They actually talked about it more, though. He was just no, this, they always said this, you were always the better one. Okay, where are Clay's parents? So I can see something that could give me a different perspective. Because whenever we see Jesse's way after an episode, whenever we see his episode with his dad, we saw a different perspective, obviously, because we're wait, Clay and his dad were obviously having issues. It's but then we see Jesse, so then we realize, there's two sides to every story. That's realistic. With this, it's just it's just words. It's all it is words. It is so much of telling and not showing. Like,
and it's like, and then just a bunch of stuff happens. And one thing I noticed that a lot of Chronicles episodes is that it feels like a lot of stuff happens, but nothing matters.
it's just randomness.
Because it's like I get bored, and it's like I was watching one of the episodes, and I looked at it, and I'm like, oh, is this episode almost over? I look at it in 8 minutes, and I'm like, we're barely a third of the way through.
Well, my one post where I'm just like 10 minutes in, it's like, I need a break to scream into a pillow.
Yeah. But, so yeah.
I was more like,
Yeah, so basically they end up fighting Lemime, because Lemime takes something or
oh yeah, the sister Shingon that happened to be right by each other.
Yeah, and when they grabbed it, there was no showdown. It was just, they both went. They both, it's weird, is that they actually said that when they grabbed these two Wu, and they were basically right next to each other.
You're supposed to wager something.
Well, no.
Even Chronicles made that thing. Like, did it just go in half?
Well, because I think they shined, and then they split, and then they're like, you both won. And I'm like, that's not what a showdown is.
Like, were we not supposed to choose showdown because they're not the main characters? Was there an actual showdown? Because it was like, but again, Patty didn't have, and did even Lemime have one? Like, because I'm pretty sure if there actually was a showdown.
No, there wasn't a showdown.
It's like, or the character's just stupid and there actually wasn't a showdown, period. And they're just like, oh, I guess they both won. It's like,
so they go and they fight Lemime, and we talked about Lemime, and then all the stupid stuff, and then they all get trapped. And of course, one of the things, Ping Pong is still just sitting there doing nothing. But they end up getting the Shangon Wu.
He's pointless. He's just a pointless.
So they get the Shangon Wu. Clay and Patty end up getting the Shangon Wu, and it turns them into some gigantic rooster or something.
No, goose.
Goose.
We're gonna cook this geese. Like that's what. That's the other thing.
Really?
I'm not a big fan of puns, but
I am a huge fan of puns.
But if you make a really good pun, somebody as me who's not a pun fan will love you, because of sometimes I'm like, okay, that was good. I will concede victory to that. Like, there's some on Tumblr where it's like pun after pun after pun, and I kind of laugh because of it's just like, it just feels like people are doing it on purpose to be like trolls, like, and that's where I feel like that humor's coming from. But it's just like
that too.
But this is
like,
Batman and Robin in terms of like the movie, the Joel Schumacher one, in terms of really bad, painful.
Bat credit card.
Or like 4 Kids is One Piece. It was just like, I'm literally here cringing.
I love puns. I even love stupid bad puns, and I'm cringing at this.
It's like, but then again, why are we surprised? There's not much thought put into this series.
Yeah, so they beat them, and then they all go home.
And everything's okay. But the thing is, like, as I complained before, there's not much to Clay and Raymundo's characters at all. Like, and still, Raymundo is like completely bland.
Completely bland.
With the head cold. But even in Clay's focus episode, there's still not much to him. Like, okay, he's a good older brother, but
apparently not.
But no, because he's just like, he's my baby brother. Like,
yeah, and they end up they do the bean sumo fighting, and he lets him win.
Which is just like, okay, but it just he's still
nothing felt like it mattered.
There still wasn't much to him. Like, Clay's obviously the quietest character out of like the main 4. He's the more subdued one. He's laid back. He's patient. He's calm. But you can still have a character like that with a very significant personality. And Clay does have a very distinct personality. And it just feels like words and a body.
Words and an accent. But and I honestly, I think that
I didn't feel much emotion come out of him. Like,
it was kind of like in book 2 of Legend of Korra, when the Air Babies were all arguing, and then they're like, here's a picture of Dad, and they're like, oh, we're all better now.
It's just like, there was no emotion.
Everything was just dropped, and like, okay, we're done with that plot.
It just like okay. Before I get into my main reason to complain about this next episode, I'm going to once again to touch up on this whole like there's not much emotion. There's this one plot line that could have like been one of the redeeming factors if point 1, Eric, the guy who voices both Raymundo and Jack, wasn't such a terrible voice actor. 2, it just wasn't so not consistent as always. It's just okay. So once again, they can never decide where Jack is. Because he's either at his place or like that mad scientist lab
Tubby-
place,
or
or
Tubby
Tubby Moore's, or Chase's lair. It's just where is Jack staying? Please just stick to one. Oh my!
Because he's just wherever they want him to be.
And the stupid food thing again, which I'm like, okay, and but Shadow is just like, can we?
Oh, Shadow was tolerable. She was the most tolerable bad guy in this.
This says something when a character I hate is the only character I can sympathize with in this entire thing.
So Chase is, and I think Chase is acting what I would say, he's acting prissy.
Oh my! It just.
He was just like,
okay,
I'm eating all my food, and it's so delicious.
I'm gonna get into that in a minute and really rip into that. But okay, so Jack's upset because obviously he feels like he's got no friends, and the closest thing he has to a friend is okay. Before he says a line, he's like, basically the closest thing he has to a friend is a ghost that screams at him a lot, which that was the Sam in Showdown. Which I'm like, okay, yes,
we agree.
Yeah, the guy who voices Jack, terrible voice actor, but yeah. But the problem was there actually was moments that could make me go aw and like Jack Omi bro TP but that terrible voice acting just ruined it so much. But besides that, it was they were kind of developing this thing because Omi was lonely and Jack was lonely.
Basically, there's that whole scene from the that episode where they all get the Chinese New Year and they all get the presents, and Omi doesn't get any presents because he's an orphan. And they're doing a scene in Chronicles where they're all getting family letters.
Well, yeah, which okay, that makes sense. Okay. I could see family
and everyone except letters. Omi gets it, and Raymundo's just like lol, and he runs off.
It was oh my gosh, and it was just like sorry about that, Omi. Here's a pile of junk mail. You can have that.
Yeah, here's the bills. So here you can.
Are you kidding me? And
because when Omi was sad, I mean they tried to.
Accidentally would say insensitive comments.
Because he's the kind of guy who doesn't really have a filter, and he'll say something stupid.
Omi does that too, but with Raymundo's, it's kind of at a different level. He's just
hey, think of all you could save on not buying presents.
I know, he was just like, he just was making
he was trying to be...
He was trying, but it was just obviously failing. You would have, like, Kimiko or Clay in the background. Like, at one point, Kimiko just, like, grabbed his lips. She's like, nice going, Rye. Or he's I think you mean a downer. And Clay's back there. He's just, like, shoving him. And he's just like, not that you are.
Yeah, and and they went up and they were trying to help Omi. And they were trying to cheer up because he was their friend and he was lonely.
They were still trying. And it's just like this. They're just like, no, whoop, wee. Everybody loves us. Let's just forget Omi exists.
Yeah, so Omi walks off screen. And then he's in the middle of a desert. And then he runs into Jack. And then they have this sort of friendship moment. And Jack's
the other thing that annoyed me is, as we see in The Apprentice, and even before that with the episode whenever they were all teaming up to fight Wuya. And Omi specifically would never say, hey, let's be frenemies. Omi would say, let's be friends, because that's who Omi is. Omi likes to make friends.
And in Chronicles, he's like, let's be frenemies.
Because it's like, there's still like this, but I don't really want to be your friend. Like, no! Omi would not say that.
I mean, apart from all the good guys treating Jack a hell of a lot worse than they ever did in Showdown.
Which, okay, but in Showdown, it was like that one episode.
When he tried
again, because I'm going to make these comparisons.
Yeah, because there's actually a number of similar episodes in the one where Jack tried to be a monk.
It was...
Because actually, he did come in there and he's I want to be a monk.
They wouldn't give him a chance, which, okay, I can see that. But it was like, near the end of the episode, where he's just like, I'll do it, you go fight, BFF. And then Jack just decides to randomly steal the egg and run off. And he's just like, nah, I'm evil, I have no friends. And I was like, what? You can't do that. You've been constantly setting up and trying to develop an actual friendship. The reason Jack didn't stay a good guy, like from The Apprentice, was... Not only was he just like feeling obviously like that hero's work is something he can't do.
And he was definitely out of place.
And Dojo obviously was picking on him, whereas Omi was sincere and trying to just be like, oh, woohoo! He's like, you must scrub all the evil out of your soul. He was trying to be a cheerleader in Omi's way, which obviously it wasn't working.
It doesn't work for the average human being.
But you could see he was supporting Jack. He was trying to support him.
But Jack actually felt like he was scared that he would fail at being good. And this is one thing I love about that episode was the Truth or Lie Showdown.
They talked about it. They
had a showdown about it.
Okay, and here's the thing. In Showdown, I actually felt sorry for Jack in those moments. Yes, he was a butt monkey, and sometimes he was hilarious when these karma things happened to him when he was being a jerk. But it was those moments
you wanted good things to happen.
But then it was moments like that still actually did make me feel sorry for him.
Because he felt like a human who was just kind of screwed
Chronicles, I don't feel sorry for him. So when these people are beating him up and stuff like that, I don't feel sorry for him. Because if it's just like, this character decides he is going to be your friend, and you've actually started to develop a friendship, but you're just like, nah.
Yeah, screw you. And then
Where did that come from? It just, like, that's not making him redeemable. That's just deciding, no, you know what? I'm going to be an a-hole. And
then, do you want to get into the main part of the episode? Alright, the beginning of the episode.
Sunglasses.
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 Sorry, Steffi, my dog's in here.
It's okay. Okay. Alright, since her mouth seems to be incapacitated at the moment, basically let me tell you what happens in the episode. Basically, at the beginning, Jack is there, and he's being chased by the jungle cat, and he's like, I have this secret concoction, and it'll do weird things to you that I don't even know.
Oh, haha, once again, introducing something that you never explained.
So they chase him, and he ends up dropping it, and the dish because Chase was sitting there eating with Shadow, and Shadow's just like, why aren't you doing anything evil? And Chase is like, I'm eating. So then Chefbot comes in, and he's bringing in the food, and then this goop that Jack had that did mysterious things lands on the food, and Chase eats the crepe. And what really pisses me off is that Chase just grabbed the crepe, and he's just like, nom nom nom. Because Chase was very dignified with how he ate, because he had this whole nice thing. So yeah, he eats this, and he's like, I'm feeling weird. And then he starts acting all emotional.
Okay, so, he is basically turned into a stereotypical pregnant woman.
Yeah, that's the whole point of Chase lays an egg, is he turns into pregnant. And Chase Young.
Okay, let's operate under the assumption you never watched Xiaolin Showdown, okay? Did you ever watch Star Wars? Because, if you did, let's just say randomly we're going to have Darth Vader or Senator Palpatine turn into these little...
Senator Palpatine gets pregnant.
Or, like, girly little schoolgirls that, like, and just, like, worry about, what am I going to wear? Or
I love the Jonas Brothers.
Or, okay, let's say you don't watch Star Wars. What if you watch Star Trek? What if suddenly you had Khan suddenly worrying about, like, oh, my goodness, I have acne. Or, let's say you don't watch Star Trek. Let's think of another villain that maybe a lot of people would know. Okay, hey, are any of you Legend of Zelda fans? What if suddenly Ganondorf was a ballerina and only cared about dancing?
The history of Shadow and Light will be written in dance.
Okay, let's say you're not a Legend of Zelda fan.
I mean, I think we got the point here.
Well, I'm just saying, you have the setup for this really great villain in this other series, and there's just so much good stuff that they do with it. And they completely destroy the character. And when I mean destroy, I mean like apocalyptic, on fire, 10,000 years of darkness.
The original ending of Fallout 3 bad.
The Last Airbender.
But yeah, and it's like, he gets pregnant, and then he starts acting like, he's like, Chefbot, get me pickles and ice cream. And then he's like, no, I want a triple cheeseburger. And it's like... A taco.
He said taco, and this morning, I was sitting there straightening my hair. He's just like, no, I need a taco. And I was literally like this. Put that down, and then I just beat up my pillows again, because I can't believe... Okay, say you... because I know some of you out there are like, oh, hey, the guy who voices Chase watches it, who's the same voice actor for Shishomaru and Inuyasha. Okay, so some of you know Inuyasha. Now, that's Shishomaru. You know, really serious character, kind of like how Chase is really serious. Shishomaru's voice is saying those lines. So not only does this hurt me because of what they're destroying Chase. That is a really good voice actor. He's also Proto Man and Mega Man NT Warrior.
Oh my
That's
God.
that voice actor.
Oh my gosh.
This is what they're doing to him.
This now hurts me on multiple levels now.
Now you can see how I feel. Oh my, do they have his family held hostage? At some point as an actor, you gotta wonder, where's the line you draw? But hey, you know, they're paying him. I'm sure he probably just thinks it's just some dumb kid show, so he's just like, whatever.
It's a job.
It's a job. It's a dumb kid show. I'm just gonna be stupid and silly because obviously this is supposed to be a stupid, silly show. Because clearly, someone knew they would not allow this to go on.
But he's doing all these goofy stuff, and then
he was making chicken sounds. Chicken sounds.
Yeah.
Chicken sounds.
Chase Young making chicken.
And cooing over it. And there was a one time that I found, two times. No. Okay, other than the fact that the only character I could empathize with was a character I hate, Shadow. There was a one line that I actually did find funny where he's just like, not the line where Chase says it could grow up to be president, because I thought that was stupid. No, was Shadow's response. She's like, well, I suppose that is evil, which I was like, ha! Which I was like, but...
It's like, why is Shadow the most likable character in this episode?
I hate her, and you're actually making her likable. Oh my gosh, but
especially compared to Chase, but it's like...
They're ruining him. They're...
So while this is all going on, Chase and Omi and Jack see this, and Omi is like, "This could be evil. We must steal this egg from him."
Okay, they were just like, it might be a Shengon Wu, but okay. There's even a showdown over it with Omi and Shadow, which I'm like, they touched it and it glowed just like a Shengon Wu, and I'm like, wait, but didn't that come from Chase? So
isn't this supposed to be some weird concoction that made Chase pregnant?
I'm like, did he just like create a Shengon Wu and just poop it out? And I was like, really, Chronicles?
And it's never explained.
It's not. Like, how do you have a showdown over an egg?
Because I mean, as far as I remember, you never go into showdowns over anything other than
a showdown. Like whenever there was only 2 times when there was a thing that had nothing to do with the Shengon Wu. One was with Master Monk Guan and Chase, and the second time
that was very explicitly a classic showdown.
Yeah, and the second time was over Omi's freedom. And it was like, that made a little bit of sense because that's obviously something big stake. That's a big stake. That's Omi's freedom. Basically, his soul. It's like to free him from Chase. Like, so that made sense. It's like, but that
just doesn't.
Oh my gosh. Like, what the heck? And, Chase actually was crying.
And he cried over the egg.
Like, not crying like a serious moment when you actually have, like, say, like a bad character cry. Like, maybe it's a serious dramatic moment.
It was, I'm so happy.
Comically, like when Bolin's heart was broken. Like, they were trying to do it as, like with the pathetic crying. Chase. Like, oh my gosh, it's like some bad impreg fanfic. They turn a
That's
guy.
Literally what this is. It's a bad male preg fanfic.
This is a really, like, this whole series is like, I'm starting to wonder, because people are like...
are they literally just going on fanfiction and just finding the worst?
If you honestly believe that Christy Wee is writing this, I'm going to tell you the invasion of the Body Snatchers came down, and they replaced Christy Wee with a fangirl so she could make her fanfic into this.
And
oh my gosh, and
he goes
crying, and he actually needed Omi to comfort him,
and he was running on a rampage of "Where's my egg?" and he charges through the and then he uses what
mood swings.
Yeah, and then he uses what I suppose is like supposed to be the new Eye of Dashi to basically destroy the barrier in the temple. Like, I didn't know this temple had a barrier.
When did that happen?
And then he breaks in, and he's like, "Where's my egg?" And then eventually Jack steals the egg, and then Shadow tries to steal it from him to betray. She's Shadow, because I mean they try to mention that Shadow was thinking about betraying Chase.
Which she's betraying Chase.
But then
it's
such a half-hearted attempt of I'm gonna drive.
It was just so matter-of-factly. Like, she's just like, I'm gonna put some real evil into this, or like whatever she said. It's just like, okay, cool.
And then they beat up.
It was just
Shadow.
like a day at the store or something. Like, she just randomly was just like, this is kind of annoying.
I'm gonna buy a couple bits of evil today.
I'm just like, Dad's annoying, so I think I'm just gonna go off and just do evil stuff. Woohoo!
And then they get beat up, and then I think didn't Chase get beaten up a lot in the episode?
They had a fight with Chase and
Shadow.
And
it could have been. It's like
it could have been really cool.
It started the first couple instances.
It was so messy, but I can't tell you how many times we have to have Jack screaming, "Not the RV! Not the RV!" Which I'm like, okay, your voice acting is terrible. Please stop it. Stop repeating this joke. When you do a joke, you don't need to, like, whenever somebody is about to get hit, usually they're just like, "Not the face! Not the face!" But they don't repeat that over and over again. Like, okay, in Danny Phantom, they had this whole joke with, like, one episode where the PDA, like, with the whole Skulker episode when he was first introduced, he's like, "Oh man, I had 2 more payments on that one." He's like, "I had 4 more payments on that one," which I was like, but they didn't keep constantly, like, over and over and over again, because I think they did that, like, 4 times of the "not the RV." And
all in like 20 seconds.
And it was so annoying, and and they kept going to the outside just so you could see these dents, and it was just like, that's taking you away from the fight.
And no one cares about no one cares about the RV. We only care about the $6 million toilet.
Which that's nowhere to be seen. Which is like, dang it, the only redeeming thing is gone. But oh my,
So yeah, then
it's not funny. Stop it.
And then it was just massive derailment, and then that's
oh,
really
and
not.
ping pong again, like.
Oh yeah, ping pong was
like,
there.
He didn't like.
He stood around a lot.
But it's not just that. Like, ping pong's not being consistent. Like, when Omi just like, he wants to be a monk now. He wants to be a friend, and the other character's like, no. And I'm like, are you kidding? The character you established ping pong to be, your little Gary Stu,
super sweet boy.
He would have gotten behind Omi on that at the very least. I mean, sure, he's a Gary Stu, and it's really annoying, but he would have gotten behind on that idea. He wouldn't have been rude and just been like, no, he could never be good. I'm like, are you kidding? Okay. So I made it explicitly clear. One of my favorite things in Showdown, like literally my favorite thing, is Omi and Chase's relationship.
Which has barely been even touched on in Chronicles.
Barely.
They had a throwaway line
in another episode,
and
then this. Okay.
At the end, after all of this happens, after all this craziness and cookiness goes down.
Okay, I'm not a fan of the theory that Chase literally is Omi's dad. Like, literally. He's 1,500 years old. Like, that doesn't make sense, and they don't even look anything alike.
Why would he ever do anything?
Omi looks a lot like Dashi, so I was always under the assumption that Omi might be a descendant of Dashi, or like maybe somebody like what if Dashi had family members and like one of them. Like,
he's blood related to Dashi
somehow. Like that. Okay, like that.
That's a cool idea.
That would be really cool.
At the end of the episode,
there was this one fanfic I remember reading that does not exist anymore. It's the reason I wrote my one shot side by side. The fanfic basically, and it never outright states it, it always kept it very subtle, is that Omi was a reincarnation of a like possible son of Chase's. Like, which it was like, but was great as it kept it subtle, because that was one of the things I loved about Omi and Chase's relationship. It was very subtle. It kept it very like they developed it so well.
It was a subplot for a lot of the season 2.
So much subplot, but it had so many layers to it that you could just pick apart and explore. And that's the way this fanfic did it. And it's just like, I like something like that, because that's not directly actually literally related to him, but that kind of gives him like a
strong connection.
It gives still a connection also, like on another level, which is why when I kind of played with him my one shot, because I was really sad that fanfic was gone. But it's like, so I like the fact that there's a possible surrogate father-son relationship going on with them. Like, that's the one thing I really like, because it's just so unique, because they're not related at all, and like you
don't see that.
You don't. It was so interesting. It was so fascinating, and they're villains, enemies, and it was interesting. It was just so much thought was put into it, and it was interesting, and it was great, and it was so much development.
And we talked about before how this was barely touched on Chronicles. And at the end of Chase Lays an Egg, Chase goes up to Omi and he's like, I'm so sad. And then he walks off, and Omi's
this cannot be! He is my family!
Yeah. It's like, Yeah. All these plot elements.
No, Chronicles. You were not going to do this. You barely touched on this.
They had more episodes involving Chase focusing on ping pong.
Ping pong than Omi. And you're just deciding to randomly throw this in again? Just like, no. And no, this is terrible. You were terrible at writing. You were terrible at everything. And their relationship was awesome because they didn't need to be related to have this connection. They were cut from the same cloth. They were similar yet very different. They were yin and yang. They like when they fought together, they were like in harmony, and they made a great team despite the fact that they were on opposite ends of like the spectrum of good and evil, and it just
So yeah.
Okay.
That was Chase Blazing Eggs. Then the last episode that has been released is called Drawn to Be Evil, which is it's just mediocre.
And once again, on par for the course, just like these other 3 episodes, it randomly introduces something at the very beginning without explanation. This kid somehow has this Shingon Wu.
Podunksville, nowhere. We don't know. He has a Shingon Wu that when he draws something...
Where did he get it?
He can use...
How did he get it?
It's the Crystal of Genesis, I think is what
How does he even know what it's called?
How does he know what a Shingon Wu is?
How does he, like, okay, he's the number one fan of Jack.
And he runs an online fan club for Jack, which I say, this is actually a really cool idea.
That would have been really funny, because then you could have, like, made, like an affectionate parody of the fact that Jack is, like, an insanely popular character. I think he might be the popular character.
One of the most popular characters in the show. I mean, hell, he's shipped with literally everyone.
I think he is the most popular character with Raymundo in second. Like, because I'm pretty sure, because of the amount of fan art I see for Jack dwarfs, like, everybody.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no. Okay, Jack, Chase, then probably Raymundo.
Yeah.
Because, like, in terms of, like, fan art I've seen, like, there is an insane amount. Like, okay, that would have been, like, a really funny thing to do. Kind of like how, like, Ember Island players kind of satirize, you know, like the Avatar fandom, too, and also some fan fiction, but they still poke fun at themselves. Like,
my name's Tough, because it sounds like tough.
Like, okay, yeah, like, that could have been an interesting idea. And this hurt me because right as I hear the person talking, I'm just like, that's Tara... Yep, that's Tara Strong, because that's Ben 10, because she was using her Ben 10 voice. And this character is just such a dumb...
He's an idiot. He's a
character.
Jerk. He's a jerk.
He's just so not... Like, he's just pointless. Like,
and
he's kind of Mary Sue-ish, too.
Yeah, so basically there are a couple of things where he's
not
drawing
consistent. Like, can I have your autograph? But then it's just like...
I'm betraying you because you're not really evil enough.
It's just like back and forth between disrespecting and then lauding Jack. Like, okay, you set up this character who has this giant portrait he drew, like, of Jack. Like my evil hero.
And then I'm not going to be your lackey. I'm going to be your equal. And
like, what?
And
okay,
then
a fanboy would not do that if you're going to have a fanboy character. A fanboy would just be like, because, okay, Jack is a fanboy of Chase. Chase is just basically like, fine, you could stick around, change Cyclops' diaper.
Yeah.
And Jack is just, he willingly did it, though, because it's just like...
He's such a fanboy of Chase.
Because he's just like, I want to stick around. Okay, he was even literally, he's just like, please let me stay. I'll even eat a bug. Like, that's what a fanboy does. Like, if you're going to poke fun at fanboyism and fangirlism, that's what you do.
Yeah, and so this kid he had this Shenron called the Genesis, the Crystal of Genesis, I believe. It's something of Genesis. And when he draws and he uses it, he can bring it to life. Okay, that is a cool new idea for a Shengon Wu.
And I will admit, if it's like, he's just like, why do these keep coming out weasels?
They're these weird,
really ugly
demon
which is
weasels.
like, okay, they're... Obviously, he's a terrible artist. Like, that was kind of like, okay.
It was only implied, it was never explained. But it was, I think that
But hey, that's finally not telling instead of, like, showing. That was more showing instead of telling. And I was like, oh, for once.
Yeah, so these weasels, for some reason, can burrow through dirt or can burrow through stone and stuff. And they went to the monks, and you're like, why are these at the monks? Because they're in some Tibetan or whatever. They're in Asia.
We don't know where they are. They never like.
These crawl all over the earth, and then they find them and the.
Like how? Like where's
Jack?
this kid? Because he's probably obviously in America. So how did his weasels get all the way over there? Like wherever the heck they are. Like did they have to cross oceans? Like. What's going on?
And there's a couple inconsistent moments that I hate at the beginning when these weasels attack, and this is the episode where they're playing the badminton, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
so good. We should call this Good Mitten.
Let's drop that big bomb of say Chase is my family. Next episode.
Hey.
Woohoo! Badminton.
Kung Fu
What?
Badminton. Okay, Kung Fu Badminton.
Wait, okay, I can see them doing Kung Fu Badminton, but just what? We're just gonna pretend that never happened?
Yeah, and so they're doing this, and then these weasels kind of attack, and for some reason, Omi was scared. No. The only thing that really, really scared Omi was squirrels.
Okay, and it would make sense if they had like a line at the very least, which I'm like, okay, I'm not a big fan of telling instead of showing, but it would have kind of made things a little bit sense if it's just like, oh, these are like
these look like squirrels.
Like these are even uglier cousins of the evil squirrels, which I'm like, that would have been funny because weasels and squirrels are basically rodents.
Yeah, and Omi's dislike of squirrels is canon because in a previous episode he was talking to Ping Pong and he was talking to how spiders were cuter than squirrels.
Which I was like, that was funny, but the few times it's ever been funny.
Yeah. So and then they're doing this and they burrow this hole and then
If they made a line like that, then it would have been like, oh good, they're still playing on the whole squirrel thing because it's just like, but it's just.
So there's this hole, and then they're coming at Omi, and he's backing up.
I mean, he could have been scared because they're obviously the most ugliest things I've ever seen. It's like that's
they're
obviously
ugly.
not.
They're so ugly.
It's like they're obviously not natural, which I'm like that I could understand.
Yeah. So Clay, Kimiko, and Raimundo are standing back, and Omi's gonna step back into this hole.
They randomly you hear Omi screaming, and they're still there, just like doing whatever and chilling.
No, they're like, no, Omi, don't fall into the hole. And he falls back, and it's like, I did not listen to my friend.
And you cut to them again while Omi's like
he's fighting all of these, and he uses what? Doesn't he use the orb of Tornami to watch all of these weasels?
Well, you cut to his friends because they hear him scream, and they're all just kind of standing there. So Omi falls down a hole, and they're just kind of like, whatever.
Yeah, and then they jump down, and then Kimiko's like, where did all the weasels go? And you're like, you didn't see any of these there because there was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of weasels down here. And you're like, no, you didn't see any of them.
Just, they're so...
Yeah, so then they go there, and this kid is following Jack, and... This kid is just such a punk, and not even a punk like...
Not even an enjoyable punk, like Dagger and Riders of Burke.
Defenders of Burke, yeah.
Or Riders of Burke, yeah. Well, they're both. Like, because he's a pair of both. Like that, he's an enjoyable, like, punk. Like, he's a character you love to hate and hate to love. Like,
it fits that Dante Basco voices him.
No, not Dante Basco.
Are you sure? No. David Faustino.
Yes.
David Faustino voices him.
Which was just like, finally. It's like
I can actually feel completely comfortable in hating David Faustino.
Well, it's like
a character that David Faustino
he's finally learning to embrace the jerk that his character is supposed to be. And at this time, the series was like, yes, he's supposed to be a jerk. We're not going to pretend otherwise.
But and this kid is just a punk, and and he even gets shilled by Wu Yao at one point, talking about how evil he is. So
okay, that would make sense for Wu Yao's character. She just pretty much...
Okay, if Jack screwed up, she would go up and say, hey, you're doing pretty good. But then she's like
somebody else. Like, if Kat Nappe came around and, like, went up to him, she'd be like, okay, yeah.
Your evil is great.
And obviously, like, there was obviously some tension going on between her and Jack in the end of season 1. Like, he's just like, I don't need you anymore. And he's failed her a lot. And it's just like, well, who's been beating him a lot? The monks. Let's see if I can corrupt one of them. And Raimundo just so happened to be... having a getting along moment with either of them either.
Yeah,
so it was just perfect opportunity just fell right in her lap.
Yeah, so...
And same with Chase. She just went down new top dog's around. I'll just follow him around.
Yeah. So this kid goes around to Chase, and then, the congratulations, the return of the Helibot, and we shouldn't be caring about whether this Helibot is back because Jack literally always carried the Helibot on his back when he went out.
But that would be expecting Chronicles to be consistent at all.
But, so they're with there, and they're going after Shangang Wu, and all right. They actually stated what the Shangang Wu was. They're writing on Dojo. They have the scroll. Kimiko looks at it. It says the Booster Rooster or the Rooster Booster. I don't remember exactly what it was. And they're like,
I think it's Booster Rooster.
Yeah, and it's like, it does something.
It's basically
the description was vague, and she's like, well, what does that mean? And Dojo's like, well, it boosts the power of any Shangang Wu it's used in conjunction with. Oh, so we have a little bit. And it's like, wow, they explained it before
and they declared a showdown. Like, she literally said, tickle the panda. And I was just
they wagered to Shangang Wu. They stated the rules. And then Jack and Kimiko get into this showdown. Then they spend the whole time running around fighting each other.
But it was like, not much trying to even... Okay, and when she eventually does tickle said panda... It laughs, but it was just like, she said, first who laughed win.
No, first to tickle the panda win.
Well, no, she's like, tickle the panda and make it laugh. I remember her saying, make it laugh. It laughed, So
and then she raced to the top.
And then she runs to the tops and grabs it. I'm like, no. See, in Showdown, it would be like, if you say you make something do this, you win. Okay, boom, that happened. And she should have won right then and there when that happened, but no.
And then this whole showdown was disgusting, but that's besides the point. So they get this, the Booster Rooster, and Omi is like, Orb of Toonami, Booster Rooster, and then it basically does this huge shadow wave, and it knocks the Shangang Wu from Omi.
Okay, so that's such a beyond stupid mistake. Omi would not make a mistake.
Water is his freaking element. He can control it at will.
Like, we saw him, like, even in the previous episode with, the Chase Lays an Egg one. Like, whenever the tigers were all around, like, him and Jack were fighting him, Omi was showing an impressive control of, like, those waves and making even going at long distance just to get those tigers away from Jack.
Yeah, he creates a whole...
It was like, the way it was like, he was controlling it very well. And it's just like this, it's just like, woohoo! What? Like, that was so stupid.
So this kid picks up the Shangang
That's something
Wu.
I could see Jack doing, because that's a joke they'd make of Jack making amateur mistakes.
And then this kid picks up the Shangang Wu, and then Jack picks him up, and they fly off. And then the kid's like, Jack, you don't have the talent for evil like me. And I'm like,
Who are you?
His weasels didn't do squat at all.
The only reason he got it is because of dumb luck.
Because of Omi. And then the only reason he escaped was because Jack carried him with the Helibot. And then he tries to take over the city with the
And she keeps using
the
the
super
Ben 10
weasels.
voice, and I'm just like, stop it.
And then they team up, and then all the heroes are so like, Jack, we're barely teaming up with you, but this is temporary, so don't get used to it. And
I'm like, okay, I guess they're pissed from the previous episode, but I'm like, well, even then, I still don't feel sorry for him because he's got terrible voice acting, and
it's like they just seem so mean, and it's not even.
I can't sympathize with anybody in this show, though.
Well, yeah, but it's like what would happen. It's almost like how the Team Avatar was treating Zuko in season 3 when he tried to join them.
But that made sense.
That made sense, but this doesn't really make much sense, and you're like, okay.
Sorry, battery died. Okay. As I was.
Because you ramble on.
Yeah. As I was saying, in Showdown, with the treatment of Jack, with the monk characters, it wasn't because he was like, it was just like, they were just like so much hatred against him. I was just like, with Showdown, it wasn't like they hated him. He was sort of like that annoying neighbor or the annoying roommate across the hall. The one that you're just like, oh wow, that kid, yeah, he's kind of like a bit of a jerk, or he's really weird, or just like, whatever, like, you just find them annoying. You don't hate them, you just find them annoying. It's like, and that's just what it felt like. And it was like, but in this series, which granted, I don't feel that sorry for Jack in this series, but he's just terribly written like everything else, and it's not consistent, but whatever. It's just like, wow, yeah, Jack is an annoying doofus character, really annoying in this series, and I don't feel sorry for him every time he gets his comeuppance, but I certainly don't hate him. It's just like, wow.
Because Jack was never really much of a threat. And in Showdown, the monks, I mean, at first, I think the longer the show went on, the less they really, treated him as a villain. It was more of a, yeah, we fight you every once in a while.
He was just more of just like that random little, like, annoying thing that, like, got in front of your car as you cross the road. Like, it's like minor inconvenience. Like, that's basically what Jack turned into, which people are just like, oh, Jack was like character like was just degraded like constantly, and it just went down. It's like, no, it kind of makes sense that his character turned sissier more as it went on, because the thing is, his character never changed.
No.
It was a constant, the same static character that he always was. Granted, he was a funny character, and that's why everybody liked him, but it's just like, but he never changed. He was the same character he always was.
We just got more and more threatening villains.
It's just the thing is that the monks changed. You see, is at first people were like, oh, Jack was so much more threatening. No, he wasn't so much more threatening and competent in the beginning.
They treated him as
they saw him more threatening, but that was because they were more inexperienced in the beginning. It's like the monks start to get more and more experienced fighters. It's like, so the stronger they get, Jack is still the same. He's still the guy making robots. So they're getting better. Jack is still the same. So, of course, they're just going to look at Jack like,
Well, it's like if you're playing an RPG game, and it's like you have that first area where you're fighting monsters or something, and they're tough at first, but then you're like level 50, you come back and you're like, you can literally just one-shot everything.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, and that's almost what it was like with
Well,
Jack.
like you're playing Pokemon, and some of those first trainers, and you're just like drilling through them.
Oh,
it's just to level up your Pokemon. And let's say you happen to maybe miss a trainer you didn't know. So you come back through the area, maybe you like are either on your way to the Elite Four, or maybe you're on your way to the 7th
or maybe you're trying to find that one Pokemon in the area.
On the 7th or 8th gym, and you're like, oh, there's a Pokemon in this area, I want to catch it. And then you just happen to see that trainer and you cross paths. Your Pokemon's like level 50, and this trainer's is 14, and you're just like, hoo hoo hoo! You are going down so fast.
That just isn't even fair.
It's just like it's taking candy from a baby. It is like, that's pretty much what Jack turned into. Like at first, like, because they were inexperienced, and Jack is just, he was always lame. Like, I love Jack, but he was always lame. He was lame from start to finish. Like he was not a serious threat. He was still a joke. Like, there were still like things that happened to him. Like, okay, he was a serious threat, but Omi pantsed him in the first episode. Come on, guys. Like, it was like, okay. Like,
Jack only occasionally did something that was significantly.
And it was occasionally, and it was like that constantly through all seasons. He occasionally got lucky. Like, and occasionally his plan actually happened to work. And it was maybe sometimes it wasn't lucky. It's just maybe every once in a while a dog has his day and actually might have a good plan. But I was just, but in Chronicles, people are like, oh yeah, he's so much more competent. Really? Because I think he's so much more annoying and dumb. Because people are like, oh, but a lot of his plans have worked a lot. And I was like, really? Because I think it's just that the heroes are still kind of dumb constantly.
And lame.
It's just
Heroes
like,
are lame.
But oh my gosh, and just the voice acting is just not that good with a lot of these characters. It is so upsetting. Okay, there's some of these lines that are even uttered by Tara Strong as certain characters, and it's just like, I'm listening to this and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was really Narmy. Like whenever she delivered a couple lines as Omi or Ping Pong or as this weasel kid character, which I'm just like, she's an amazing voice actress, but it's just like, if you don't have a good director, sometimes like if you have a director that just doesn't care, you're not going to bring out the best in your talented people. Because it's like, and if the director doesn't care, why should the actors care?
Yeah. Well, I do remember there's a lot of times they were trying to write Omi, and Omi would say something, and he'd be like, and then he would do that too, but he'd messed up slang, and you're just like, but I mean,
it felt so like phoned in because sometimes I was like, oh, I think Omi said something wrong, like it was sort of like almost an afterthought when he would say these things, like.
And it's like, oh, he said that too in Showdown, so he needs to say that too here.
It was like the reason they sometimes throw these things, they feel like they have to. Because like, oh, Showdown fans, here, we'll throw you a thing. Except it's not consistent, it's messy, it's all over the place, and you're not giving it much purpose. Pointless. It's just like, it has no soul. It still has no soul, and it keeps getting worse, and it keeps ruining its characters. And it keeps just making me want to turn into Godzilla and rampage a certain studio in Canada. Yeah. And
just, it's just, I don't really know how anyone could really get into this show. I mean, it's 20 episodes in, and there's still been no significant plot.
Like, okay, some people are like, well, there was random filler episodes too, and Showdown, which I'm like, okay, but
there was always a major plot line.
I was like, but even the filler episodes most of them were fun still. But I was like, and okay, some of them in season 3, I will admit, did feel like, this is a little bit nonsensical. Like, it's like, but at least there were still a couple of moments. I can still remember, at least there's something out of each episode. Even some of the more not as good written ones. The more not up to par, it's like they still had a couple moments where I'm just like, okay, yeah, at least they had that moment here and there that I liked, or at least they had that funny line, or that cool showdown, or maybe that character moment was a really good character moment.
Well, and the way it's like
and the season finale, while it had plot holes, it was still a really good season finale for season 3. And season 1 and 2 just kept, it built up to its season finale each, and it made sense with season 1, which it was just like chase after Shingon Wu, fight, Resolution. Chase Shingon Wu fight resolution, because it was basically, it was just setting up the story, but it was still building up to, because it like set up the introduction of Wuya, so it's like, so it still was setting up that eventual threat of her, like coming into existence. And with season 2, it started off going back to basics, like basically going back to the status quo. It was like, okay, Wuya's back, chasing after Shingon Wu, and so it kind of gives you this sense of like normalcy, because then you start to get comfortable. Because then episode 11 comes, I think it was 11. Because then it throws you a whammy by introducing to you Chase. Because then it's just like suddenly everything changed after that.
Yes.
It's like suddenly things were not the same. And even then, in between, they had episodes where Chase wasn't around and it was like after, but that made sense because Chase wasn't as concerned with the monks originally at first. You start to see his presence a little bit more, because then he does start to like, okay, I need to consider them as a threat, and I want this little kid as my apprentice. Like that kind of made sense, because at first he just regarded them as like, oh, they're not a threat, but then it was just like, oh, they might become a threat. They could become a problem. I need to take care of this. So then you would start to see him more. And still, those episodes in between had some nice character moments and some funny like jokes like in between, like the Demon Seed one was not only because it was like Raimundo screwed up, but it was just like that funny joke where like was obviously getting crap past the radar joke where Obi just like picks that apple off of like Clay's bush, and Clay's just like, be careful what you go picking there, partner. And I'm just like, oh my god.
Hey, I admire your tasty fruit. Just be careful what you're picking down there, partner.
I'm just like, oh my gosh. I was like, but it was like, okay. I don't find any enjoyment out of Chronicles, period. I progressively keep getting more and more pissed off. Though I will say, for the first time, after Chase lays an egg, the following episode, I wasn't even more angry at. I still hated it, but I didn't hate it as much as Chase laid an egg.
I just think that it was one of the most... It was just more boring than most of the other episodes.
That's the problem. When they're not being outright so terrible, it pisses me off. They're being boring. They're not interesting. They're not doing much, and it's like there's the randomness. Like if you didn't like season 3, because I know some people are like, "Oh, Showdown wasn't perfect either." Yeah, I know, I understand.
Well, but here's an idea. There's a difference in the quality of it, because with Xiaolin Showdown, you had the quality; it would dip and it would rise and stuff, and so occasionally you'd have a lower episode, and you'd be like, "Yeah, that wasn't nearly as good." Like, but with Chronicles, the bar starts here and just kind of flutters down the bottom.
And then at one point it was like, whoop, and then it just kind of was like, eh. But
those small, tiny moments, like when Raimundo got a letter from his sister, and it was her sending him a knock or a joke that she came up with. It's like the...
And it was a dumb joke, too. I couldn't even appreciate it. I mean, I know you appreciated it, but I'm just like...
I didn't appreciate the joke. I appreciated the fact that one of his sisters sent him a joke.
Yeah, I know. Like that was like... I was like, okay, really that would be cute. And I was like, yeah, where is Raimundo's family? Or are they all circus people?
Oh, yeah, we forgot to mention that. Since they had changed his backstory to be he lived and grew up in the circus.
So I guess, are they some circus family or something? Like, whatever. Like,
or are we going back to his Showdown big... backstory where he had, like, was it 8 siblings?
He had 8 siblings. He said he had 8 siblings, and it was like a big family. He's like, I got 8 siblings, and I have so many aunts and uncles, all that. So it was like, yeah, he comes from a big family. Like, okay, so is his whole family the circus? Like, I don't know. Like, that's just...
That whole circus thing was so...
It was so stupid. It just... How does that fit into... Like, and again, Raimundo's character is so bland, so it doesn't really do much. Like, if you're going to introduce something and to make it part of a character's backstory, you need to kind of make it fit. Like, even with Chronicles, how stupid its writing is and how dumb it is and how much they flanderized Omi, the whole orphan thing still will get moments of it, kind of. Granted, they're shoehorned in, but it's just like, okay, but that's still, those sad moments match up because he's an orphan. It's like, oh my gosh, but there's nothing consistent. And even again in this episode, I remember Ping Pong also being really viciously mean to Jack too.
Yes.
Like, because they're all just like, we hate you, Jack Spicer, basically. And it's like, even Ping Pong. And I was like, Ping Pong? The little pure soul? Like, I think a pure soul couldn't have it in them to hate anybody.
I mean, it'd be more like what we were actually talking while the battery was charging. You talked about Ken and Davis in Digimon Adventures 02, where it's like...
Well, with Davis's character, it's not like he's some Gary Stu.
No.
He's a dumb kid. He is dumb as rocks. Like, literally dumb as rocks. This kid is as dumb as they come. Bona fide idiot. But he's so simple. Everything about him is simple. And it's like the fact that he's an idiot and he's so simple-minded is both one of his greatest strengths and his greatest weaknesses. Because of his dumbheadedness and his recklessness and bullheadedness always gets him into trouble. But at the same time, it always pulls a lot of these characters out of the fire too. So it's this really funny thing. And
the Ping Pong was more like that. I think that would have been a much...
Well, yeah, if you had this... Well, Kari, a lot of fans accuse Kari in Digimon of being a Mary Sue, and she's not a Mary Sue, because a Mary Sue would not have this many insecurity issues that Kari does. Like, because Kari... Granted, of course, they didn't develop it enough, but O2 wasn't that great of a story. I mean, they had great moments and great ideas, just... It wasn't put up together, but the guy who obviously the main writer for it wasn't that good of a writer in comparison to the other seasons before and after. But one of the best things about O2 though was the fact was Davis and Ken, their friendship, and it wasn't anything deep or profound like these two characters acting. Like with Ty and Matt, there was these two characters always butting heads. They came from different worlds and they had different ideologies and different personalities. But at the end of the day, because they were fighting for the same things, they learned to suck up their pride and get along, like, eventually, and become a team. And with Ty and Izzy, it was like, again, two very different characters, but they had like a deep and profound moment with, like Ty's had with both of those two characters. With Davis, it's nothing deep and profound. I don't even think Davis at all knows Ken's backstory. That's never brought up. I don't think any of the kids do. But granted, I don't think that's something Ken would want to talk about. It's like, but Davis doesn't care. He just wanted to be Ken's friend. It was simple as that. It was just simple as, oh, this kid's sad. Davis me no like sad. Everyone needs to be happy. Here, come play with us. It's like, oh, you're a Digidestined? We're Digidestined. That means we're all supposed to be teammates and friends. Like, Davis was simple. That's all there was he needed. And with Kari, it was like, she was very pure, but she was pure to the point of self-sacrificing. To the point that...
Which in itself can be a major flaw.
For her, it was a huge major flaw. Like, even in Adventure, where it's like, because she was so... Like, one episode, I told you, I talked all about it, with My Sister's Keeper. The start of the episode, you see Kari struggling to keep up with everybody, but she was starting to feel sick, but she didn't tell anyone at all that she was feeling sick because she didn't want to slow them down. The group had to keep going. So, because Kari is always trying to please people and make everybody else feel better, she sacrifices her own well-being for it. So, of course, the group has to, like, all of a sudden they stop and they see she's fainted. Like, she passed out. Because, like, she was starting to get a fever. And then they had to pull the side of the road. And then eventually, it put a lot of people in danger because then the group had to separate. They had to run around this town that one of the evil, like, Mega Digimon was, like, hanging out in. And it was, all because they had to take care of Kari. Like, and probably the one thing Kari was trying to avoid was becoming a liability. And she became a liability in that moment because she was just trying to keep it quiet and trying to stick it through. Because to Kari, oh, Ty would stick it through. Ty would fight through it because that's one of her other faults. She has like this hero worship and this inferiority complex to her brother, that her brother's always right, no matter what. And so, like, whenever Ty was like, even whenever she was trying to stick it through something, like whenever they were little kids and she did something, like I was telling you that story, whenever Ty comes, like, and their parents bring her home from the hospital and she was sick when she was really little, the one thing Kari says to Ty that sends Ty's guilt into overdrive is Kari says, I'm sorry Ty couldn't kick the ball very well, because what Ty was saying to Kari before she passed out when they were really little kids and she got pneumonia and almost died from it, was Ty was like, no, Kari, that's not how you kick the ball. You're not kicking it very well. So that was in Kari's mind when she got sick, like, and was in the hospital. That stayed in her mind, and to her mind, she was just like, oh no, I couldn't kick the ball very well. My brother might hate me. I was just like, ah! He's like, I'm a jerk. And but that's who Kari is. She never thinks of herself, and sometimes that can be a quality in a Mary Sue character. But what keeps Kari from being a Mary Sue is she does it to the point she hurts herself. she like lets herself, like, bad things happen to her constantly, and it gets other people into trouble too, because now then they have to pull her out of the fire, and she'll like break down, and she's like, the thing is a character who, an insecurity is not humility. The opposite of pride is not insecure. The opposite of pride is humility. A humble person does not think of themselves, period. A humble person, because whenever you are thinking of yourself, it's both in the spectrums. It's, I think I'm the greatest thing in the universe, versus, oh my gosh, I'm the worst thing in the universe. Both instances are a form of selfishness, because it's still about you. Like, it's still centered around you. A humble person thinks about everybody but themselves. So Kari does have elements of a humble person, because she does think about a lot of people, but the problem is she's also very insecure, and in a way, the different kind of selfishness. Not the selfishness where you only like think you're the greatest thing, but where she just thinks she's the like a burden. And because she tries to avoid being a burden, she ends up becoming a greater burden and making like people like have to do like work even harder just to get her out of trouble. It's like, and that's how you do a character that Ping Pong could have been. Ping Pong could have been a Kari. He could have been the humble little boy who's always thinking of trying to please everybody, because like Omi, he's like, he could have started off, he was like, he didn't really have a home, so maybe it was just the thing from going up from monastery to monastery, because he wanted to be wanted. It was like, because with Omi, the reason he always wanted the attention, thinking, I need to be the best thing ever, and then everybody will like want to be with me. It was like with Ping Pong, you could have had the opposite end of the character thinking, if I please everybody and do anything they want, then everybody will want me around. It's like, so I'll constantly keep trying to make people happy at the expense of his own happiness. Like that, you could have had that. It's like, and that would have been great. I would have totally forgiven the lazy character design if he was that way. It's like,
I wouldn't have completely forgiven it, but
okay,
it
I would have partially. Like, I was like, I would have been
it
like,
wouldn't have been so bad, is what it would have been. Because it's like, even though if it's a lazy design, he would still be a good character.
It's like a character that I can admire, because in a way, Asami's that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because people are like, Asami's a Mary Sue. It's like, because she's not. Like, what Asami's fault is because
she gets crapped on more than anyone.
Well, yeah, it's like Mary Sue has everything going swell.